Dr. Danny Matta, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
For sure. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, me too. So first, I kind of want to chat about what's new with PT Biz. So maybe talk to listeners a little bit about what PT Biz is if they don't know what it is, and then we can chat about what's been going on that front.
Okay. So yeah, PT Biz is a company that I started in 2017 when honestly, sort of like not intentionally, I was teaching a continuing education course actually for Kelly Starrett's group. At the time it was called Mobility WOD. Now it's called the Ready State. And I was teaching like movement principles for them. It had nothing to do with business. And a lot of clinicians would come to that course and a lot of strength coaches. And what happened was we'd have lunch with people that were at the course, or I'd go grab a beer with people afterwards or whatever. And any clinician that was there, they'd be really interested in my business because I'd started a cash-based practice with my wife in Atlanta, Georgia in 2014. And by 2017, we'd scaled it to multiple PTs, and it was running like a real business. And so we get a lot of questions about that. And I ended up meeting a handful of people that all wanted to kind of just get some help on their business. And I didn't actually know if it would work. So for a year, I took 7 businesses and I worked with all of them one-on-one for a year. And then at the very end of it, we all got together at my clinic and we met up and had like a day where we worked on their businesses, and we grabbed dinner all at one table together, which is wild because we can never do that again with the people who work with. There's too many. And then all of them, basically, I was like, cool, good luck, guys, and they all want to come back. So we realized, wow, I think there's like, a need for this. And maybe we figured out stuff we didn't even think that we understood as well as we did on the business side. So, that went from 7 to 15 to then 25 or 30. And then next thing you know, like years later, right now we actively work with about 250 businesses
Wow.
in the mastermind portion of that, and about another 80 in our Rainmaker program, which is like businesses that are getting started. So that's much shorter. So a little over 300 total businesses with that company. And what we do is we really either help them get started and grow to where they can leave their full-time job in our Rainmaker program, or in our mastermind, we're helping them grow a business past themselves and really grow something that's like a true business, and work on people, processes, sales, marketing, and actually like become a good business owner. So with that, our primary focus right now really is just to continue to try to create an unfair advantage for our people. And what's nice about that is because we have so much combined data, and it's a huge advantage in our opinion, we almost have like the scope and the data aggregation of a franchise, because of how much information we aggregate on a monthly basis and conversations that we get to have consistently. But it's their business, so it's not like we don't own any equity in it. We don't tell them what to call it. We don't do anything on the creative side. Like but we share what's working in real time. Which when you're by yourself in like a silo is really hard, right? Because you're like, I don't know if I'm making the right decision. I don't know if I'm doing the wrong thing. I have this friend that owns this pool company that tells me to do this. And I have this person that I talk to locally that says this. And you just don't know what's right for our industry. So for us, that's the biggest thing, is we want to just continue to try to help them grow and hire and really create jobs for clinicians that are fantastic. So, they don't have to work in a really shitty high volume clinic or a hospital clinic that they don't want to work in.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, because this has been going on, you've been working on this since 2017, you said?
Yeah.
So I'm sure your process over the past, 8 years has become more refined, right? Like as you're starting, like you're talking about mentoring these 7 companies, and now you've got over 300 on the docket. I mean, I bet you've sort of been able to streamline your process and figure out how to get people there, maybe not faster, but more efficiently.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the same for everybody, but there's a lot of similarities, right? This concept of like 80-20 principle. So what we find is if we focus on these 20% of sort of like core elements of a business, that gets people 80% of the benefit. And the frustrating part for a lot of people is it's not what they want to hear, right? It's not like some super cool marketing funnel that's going to change their business overnight. It's not, it's not some like, whatever hack on their sales and marketing. Like there's it's usually fundamental things in terms of how they are actually like consistently running their business, like little things over a long period of time that make a really big difference. And frankly, just becoming a better leader of other people. And that's something that I think is very challenging, especially for younger clinicians that have never actually been in a management position at a minimum, if not in a leadership position where they've really had to hold other people accountable. They've had to do difficult things as far as like, have difficult conversations or show up consistently over a long period of time, or just really be able to like consistently give people feedback and make them better and hold a standard. And if they haven't done that, we find that actually leads to a lot more turnover, which slows a business down a lot. And, if we can take people and make them better leaders, better business owners that people want to continue to work with, that's one of the fastest ways to actually grow your clinic, is just to not have people constantly leaving. Because there's very few things that will slow you down faster than that.
I'm curious if you found people that you mentor in this program, when they hire other physical therapists on, if it gives that physical therapist that they hired the same idea, almost like, oh, okay, I see that this person, like Roni hired me for Rehab with Roni. Why don't I just go off and do my own thing? Do you tackle that in the mentorship program and just kind of talk about how to make it so good that they can't leave?
Well, I mean, I would say, if you look at it from that perspective, I guess some people are going to leave no matter what.
Right.
I've successfully had 2 employees that have fantastic practices that are, used to work for our practice that we had in Atlanta, that they left and they started their own, and they're doing great, and the hiring mistake that we tend to see is entrepreneurial people tend to like to hire other entrepreneurial people. You tend to hire people that are like similar to you, when in actuality you need to hire for like certain skills. And I think one of the pros of the sort of cash-based model is the simplicity of it, and one of the cons is the simplicity as well. Because when you're working in an in-network clinic, you have no idea like what does somebody get reimbursed per session. I mean, maybe they have a general idea, but like it's very convoluted. In a cash-based clinic, it's very simple, and it's not hard to do the math. And this is where it gets really challenging with employees and staff that you have, because if you have somebody that is like super entrepreneurial and they're like, oh, I could generate this much money on my own and I just go do my own thing. And that's cool, because that is true in a lot of ways. That exchange is better than working for somebody else. If you are okay with the additional work and risk that you're taking on, which most people don't actually account for, because it's not like you're just trading the same amount of time for more money over somewhere else, or potentially less money, because it doesn't mean it's actually going to work. So you have to take the risk with that. And the other variable that's challenging is trying to explain benefits, overhead, payroll taxes. Like, I remember the first time I had a conversation with an employee about payroll taxes alone, they couldn't believe that I had to pay so much money for them just to be an employee. And in fact, they didn't even know what payroll taxes was. And when I explained to them that we had to pay like 15% of their salary, I had to pay 15% of my salary and 7.5% of their salary for payroll taxes, they were like kind of irritated. They were like, why would anybody do that? And I go, well, it goes to pay for these benefits in the government, right? And so like they don't account for these other things. They just see, oh, I see this number of visits, it costs this much, they should be paying me this much. When in actuality, like the revenue amount generated in a cash-based clinic typically is a good bit less than an in-network clinic because of volume. And yet, like if you're trying to make the same amount of money in a cash clinic, they're probably paying you a higher percentage than in an in-network clinic if you're looking relatively at what you're generating. So,
Yes.
but I think people leaving comes down to more who you're hiring. And the biggest mistake that I see is we like to hire people like ourselves. And that's cool, except think about yourself for a second. Like, you start a business for a reason.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I don't think I've ever thought about it like that, but you are going to vibe with somebody who is also really excited about the business and is also really interested and motivated to treat people one-on-one and get out of the cogwheel that is the insurance-based physical therapy. So yes, that makes sense. It's a really good point. You keep making
multiple providers, like your business right now. Is it just you? Have you hired somebody else?
Me. It's just me, but I bring this up because I just was finishing up your book. He has a book for everybody that can't see the screen. It's called F star CK Insurance. F word insurance. We'll keep it G-rated. And it's a fantastic book, but in it, you make this distinction between a true business and then a lifestyle business, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the words that you used, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this has been operating for me as more of a lifestyle business over the past year, but I am due with our first
I
child in
saw that.
August. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. But it sort of got the wheels turning. I was like, well, wait a second. Do I want to close down for 12 weeks or cut off the time that I spend postpartum with my child because I need to get back to the business? Or do I want to try to make it run while I'm not here? Or if I got hit by a bus, would it continue running?
Right.
And so that's kind of how I got the wheels turning. And now I'm in the process of bringing somebody on. So I was just, curious about what your experience has been with that, but also, it was a nice thing to read because I was like, oh, I'm exactly in that spot right now. That's where I am. And I'm learning that it has to be a true business if I want to be able to take a step back and also be a mom.
Yeah, and I think everyone's situation is different, right? We have worked with a lot of women that have had kids while they have either started or been running their businesses, and it's something that we actually have in PT Biz we actually have a coach who does like pre and postpartum calls as almost as if she actually owns a women's health clinic, which is even better. But she said she had 3 kids during the time that we worked with her. Actually, like really early on, she was supposed to be the 8th person in our group, the first people that I worked with. And she called me and she goes, "Danny, I just found out I'm pregnant. You're the second person I told." Like I told my husband and now I've told you. And I don't know if it's the right time. Yeah. And I go, I don't think it is either. I think you need to just like focus on this, your first kid. Like it's just going to be a lot. Right. And what's been interesting is to watch her in that position and now have 2 other kids at different stages of her business. And I can definitely say that if you have systems in place, it makes it better in a lot of ways, far less stressful in a lot of ways. You have this recurring revenue that's coming in, or I should say like semi-passive revenue, because in most cases you're not super passive just yet if it's not bigger. And, but you can make it work either way. And I think this is the key for people is to figure out, like, there's this concept that we talk about of like, what race are you trying to run? Because for some people, they might want a lifestyle business like you. And they might just say, you know what? That's cool. I want to work 2 days a week, maybe 3. Maybe you have like dual income in your household and you've got good benefits with your partner and all these things that are really, maybe other people don't have that. Maybe you do. It depends on everybody's circumstances. But you have to pick the business vehicle that aligns with what you want. And if you go the route of a true business, you can be like a clinician and focus on that and have a lifestyle business and be like pretty busy and replace your income and work a couple of days a week. Like that's something that's very, very achievable, even if you're not the best business owner in the world. If you want to then go and grow past yourself, well, now you just basically like chose a much harder game to play, which is fine because that might be the game that you want to play and that's one you should play. So from there, though, it just comes down to the repeatability of a business comes down to the organization of the systems, the culture that you create, and then you being able to hold that standard and your team hold that standard when you're not around. And this is where it becomes really cool whenever you actually, have maternity leave and you go through, having a pregnancy and are able to take the time off afterward and not stress about patients being seen and people being seen the right way and all that. And building to that is really like, it's challenging. It takes some time. But the first step is getting that person there to cover your schedule, which is what you have, which is awesome, right? So like
right.
that right there will take a lot of stress off your plate. You're just like, oh, thank God, right? But then from there, what's really interesting is people like yourself, you'll have this maternity leave. And during that time, you're going to get somewhat probably antsy to get back into some business stuff, but you don't want to come to the clinic because you're home with the baby. But it gives you a fantastic time to actually work on systems. And there's no interruptions. Well, there's interruptions, obviously, but like not from your team. And,
right.
and then you may actually come out the other side and you're just like, oh, this is exactly what I need the second time if you decide to have another kid. The next time it's going to look more like this. And it's a really cool thing to watch now that we've seen it so many times.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting how that trajectory sort of can change in your mind too, because I don't know if you were like this, but when I first graduated PT school, I was like, all I want is a great PT job. That's it. Like, I'll be happy. I'll be smooth sailing for the next 40 years. And then a few years go by and I'm like, well, all I want is to actually just kind of do my own thing on the side and then also still work my full-time job. Well, no, never mind. Actually, I think I have to just only do my own thing on the side, but I don't need any other employees. Like I'm happy doing this by myself. But then the reality of the situation is like the business will be alone for 12 weeks. I'll have to turn people away. Like my patients won't get cared for. So now I have to entertain this idea of, well, maybe it's time to hire somebody. But I know that a lot of people are big goal setters, but it's almost like these goals you don't even realize you have until you're sort of in that situation. And then you're like, oh, time to change course and move things forward in a different direction, but upward, you know?
It's normal too, right? Like,
yeah.
It's crazy when we think, we have friends in the neighborhood whose son just graduating this summer, and he just got in Georgia Tech, and he's super excited. And I was talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to go. I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to do this." And I'm like, "That's awesome. That sounds cool, dude. But also, you're 18 years old. Don't feel bad if you decide you want to do something different, right? And like change your mind, and life will flow, and you flow with it, and you make you make changes based on that. And for it's crazy for us to think that like, oh, we have everything figured out when we're 24, 25 years old, and we just got out of PT school or whatever. And that just isn't the way that it should be for a lot of people, because I thought the same thing. I thought I was going to be in the Army for 30 years. Like,
right.
That's what I thought I would do. And, things change. You meet people, and they give you opportunities, and it's up to you to decide if that's the right decision or not, because other people could be totally happy working 40 years in the same clinic, and they just, commit to clinical excellence, or, whatever. Maybe they have more hobbies than we do. Like, we're not exactly normal people. Got to keep that in mind too.
True.
You ever go to a dinner party and somebody just like, they don't want to talk about their fucking job. When you go to entrepreneurs, you go around other entrepreneurs, all they want to do is talk about their business, and it's
what
like,
they're doing.
Exactly. That's not normal. We're not. So we got to have perspective for that too. And I think that it's natural to have that evolution and the baby steps of, well, I'll do this thing on the side, and then from that, maybe I'll be full-time with this. And then, well, maybe I could hire somebody, or you have this bigger vision of wanting to help more people. And then all of a sudden that drives you to want to do more on the business side. So I think that's normal. And I had a very similar sort of like stair step approach to.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was curious if you always saw, once you left the military, like, okay, this is going to be the athlete's potential. I mean, it started with just you, but did you envision you said 4 other therapists?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the year when we had it, right? But like, now, we sold the business 3 years ago, and I don't know how they have like locations in another state at this point. Like the new owner is a killer, and he like it's a bit changed now, but at the time I would say that no, I had no desire to see anything more than just my schedule. Like, so, cause I was teaching a lot. I was traveling, 2-3 times a month sometimes. And it was cool because I liked it, and I got to go really cool places and work with really just unbelievable teams of people, as well as civilian groups I was working with. They were just like fun to work with. I got to see a lot of the country and the world because of it, which is cool. But then, you miss a lot of important things with your kids, and then you don't want to have that travel element where you're not able to like go to birthday parties and games and stuff. And so I thought that I would just treat during, the times when I wasn't traveling, because I really enjoyed teaching. And, and then that started to change as we had different family goals and things that I wanted to do. So I started to strip down that, and the business started to grow. And I just thought, well, maybe it'll just like be me and my wife, and I can have a busier schedule and definitely make more than working somewhere else. And then you meet like cool younger clinicians. You're like, damn, this person's awesome. Like, this would be a great person to work with. And
right.
they don't want to go work at this high volume clinic. And like, I feel like I'm, I don't know if creating a job to sort of like save them from this reality that I know sucks. And then you start hiring people, and then, next thing you know, you're like, well, shit. Okay, well, we have one, and that's like, if you have one, you basically have zero. What if they leave? So then you got to, hire another one, and then you got to figure out the volume for that. And so yes, it was not planned by any means. I didn't have some grand vision. And if anybody thinks that they need that, like, it doesn't exist unless you're putting the work in. And oftentimes you don't even know you need to have a vision. Right. So, it was very similar.
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of what I mean. It's like, you can try and map out your 5 and your 10-year plan and to the best of your ability. But a lot of times it's just going to change as you change, and as your ideas start to expand into other like facets of the business. It just seems like, oh, I'll just treat these people and it'll be fine. But if you have that growth mindset, if you will, then things will expand a little bit. I was actually kicking myself as I was reading the book. I was like, dang, I didn't know he was based in Atlanta. I grew up in Cumming, Georgia.
Okay,
Um,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, and then I went to school at Georgia State. So
Yeah.
I was like
What
in
year
your
did you
back.
graduate? When were you there?
I graduated from undergrad there 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that probably would have been a little bit after we hired one provider from there. I think they might have even hired a second one. It's a great school, PT school. And yeah, the area is cool. I actually was up yesterday. I was fishing with some friends and my son and their sons on the Chattahoochee River, and we were through Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Roswell, kind of working over that way. So a little bit to the, I guess, east of where you grew up, but like that whole North Atlanta area is beautiful.
It's so awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's great.
Chattahoochee runs through like my parents' backyard. So you could get up by like Beaufort Dam, get on the
Yeah.
water and go all the way down. Yeah.
Right. We didn't go quite that high,
Okay.
although we probably will next time. But I mean, it's a beautiful area, and to kind of bring it back to your point, right? Like imagine 10 years ago to where you are now. Like this is something that I think for a lot of people they have a lot of anxiety over. Like I need to have this vision for my life. But if you think 10 years ago to where you are now, like there's no way you
No
probably
way.
would even think you're doing what you're doing right now. Now, imagine 10 years from now until, like 10 years out in the future. A, I could be fucking dead by then. I don't know. Like, I may completely want to do something different. AI might remove all of our jobs for all we know, right? Like there's so many variables that I can't forecast. 3 years is probably max to be honest, maybe five. And we do some like some exercise where we really force, like focus on like pushing it out a little bit further, but it's really our best guess. And the whole point of it is to force you to really think about what life you want more so than what like the details look like. And
Hmm.
if you can back into some of the details, that's great because at least you know you're running the right direction. And the thing that I think is really frustrating for people is when they end up going the wrong direction and they get like halfway up this mountain, if you're kind of think of it like in terms of this climb you're trying to achieve, and they get halfway there and then they look around and they're like, damn it, I went up the wrong one. And then they have to go back down and backtrack and they go over somewhere else. But better to figure that out at some point in your life than never. And
Yeah.
that's actually not people that never actually figured out what they're supposed to do. And then they die and they have all these regrets and it sucks, not to be morbid or like sad about it, but we've worked with people all age demographics. Think about that. Like as a physical therapist, you work with young kids and you work with elderly people. And I don't know if you've ever like really had like, conversations with some of your more geriatric patients, you can learn a lot of shit from those people.
Oh yeah.
And if you just ask them and you just listen, and because they'll tell you, they'll be like, yeah, don't do this. Wish I hadn't done that, and it's just a matter of us like paying attention.
Yeah. They have the benefit of being able to look back in retrospect and be like, well, if I had just made this decision or if I had just done that. Another thing you talk about in the book is just figuring out like your why or like the core reason for what you want to be doing. And I think that could help you avoid the climbing the tree or climbing up the wrong tree in the wrong direction, which was sort of what brought me to rehab with Roni. Is I remember being in the outpatient clinic and realizing like, oh, I'm a family person. I come from a big family. I want to have one of my own. I'm already married. There's no shot that I have enough time. I don't have enough ownership of my time. I don't have enough ownership over my life. Like I have to take off PTO to go to the dentist. Like there's no
Yeah.
way that I'm going to be able to have a kid and spend time with it. And so that was my why. And I think just having that, it doesn't have to be complex. It can just be like, I want to see my future children more, or I want to spend more time with my spouse or see my parents more because they're getting older. It can be really simple. And then from there, like you're talking about, you can set that goal and then backtrack it and figure out the path that's going to take you there.
Well, and you seem like a lot of people that we work with, that people kind of fall into two categories, right? Some people are very time biased. Like they really they want time flexibility. They want to be able to do the things that are important to them with the people that are important to them. And I would actually say that that's the vast majority of clinicians. Most people in the clinical world got into it knowing that they're not going to make $1 million a year, right? Like
Right.
this isn't a career where that's even a possibility if you are working as a clinician in some sort of office. So they tend to be more time biased. Other people are much more financially biased, right? And they see big opportunities and they want to, play a game at like a really high level and they were looking for this big exit. And I would definitely say there's people that we work with that fall into that category. And not to say that you can't kind of do both, but they tend to be a bit more one direction or the other. So the time freedom, it's a really challenging problem, as a clinician. Even as an employer, you'll notice this as well, because you want your staff to be able to have flexibility, and you can engineer better work-life balance into their career, because being a clinician is very hard. It's like you have 7 hours, 8 hours worth of structured meetings every single day. The average office worker
one-on-one meetings.
Yeah. Or one on three, and,
right.
Then you have like 20 people a day you're working with, and then you have to document all that shit. And like, so, if you ever talk to somebody in corporate America, that's not what they're doing 7 meetings a day, every single day. It doesn't work that way.
They've got more free time.
They would quit, like my friends that work in corporate America, they're on like 2-hour lunches all the time. And I'm like, what do y'all do?
My husband works from home, and I'm like, I just called him before this, and he's like, oh, I think I'm going to cook up some steaks, head to the gym. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's a great example. Like? That's it, and all we want to do is go to the fucking dentist without having to take PTO, right? It's like, we're not asking for that much. And so I think for you, and what's cool for us and this is something that actually I get really irritated with whenever I see our own like clinics that we're working with, and they're treating their clinicians exactly the same way that they got treated, that frustrated them so much. And I'm like, why are you creating a work environment that was so toxic that you left? Like, you're creating the same work environment. So, and it's because they start looking at the fundamentals of the KPIs and all these things. And I get it on the business side, but when we really look at, I think, our opportunity to create these fantastic work environment, which has a lower turnover, where you can have people really, serve people at a high level, have a great job. That's up to us to engineer. And, that comes down to being able to match up the business financials, the dollars and cents, with the core values that you have, and then holding yourself to those standards as your team continues to grow.
Yes. Yeah. I get a lot of questions from PT students. So people that are like more towards the end of their PT school career. They see what I do, they see what you do, and they're like, what is your advice for me so that I can start my own business when I graduate? And I kind of am of the opinion that you should probably go get some more like world work experience before you go off on your own, because it is such a leap of faith and a financial leap. And, a lot of things sort of should be a little bit more in place, I think, before you try and start your own business. But I'm curious if you get people right out of grad school that are trying to start their own business, and what do you say to them?
We definitely do. But I'm not the biggest fan of people trying to start a business right out of school, because unless they have some pre-existing skill set in a niche, like, I'll give you a good example. Like, let's say you ran in college and you're like a competitive runner, you're really, deep into that sort of niche, that's sports. And you're working with people on the side as a running coach while you're in PT school, and you get out and you want to start a cash-based clinic that works with runners specifically, you're going to be fine, right? But for the average person, they're more of a generalist, and they're trying to figure out how to be a great clinician. And even that runner PT, they're going to have to figure out how to be a good clinician, because you're not going to be a good clinician when you first graduate. In fact, I don't think most people are really all that good until maybe 3 years of time under their belt of working in a clinic. Sometimes you need to get that high volume, clinical schedule, so you get reps, so you get pattern recognition. You need time to go to Con Ed courses. You need to figure out what niche maybe you're really interested in, and you can kind of work some of those kinks out along the way. And it's not like, I don't know if it's just people feel like they're wasting time or something, and like, the opportunity for you to start a clinic will be there in 3 years, and you will be in such a better position to make that work. And right, for me, I was, I guess, almost 4 to 5 years out from graduation, whenever I started, when I started my clinic. And I feel like I was barely like good enough to go into an environment like that and be successful. And I was a clinic nerd. Like, I went to so much Con Ed stuff. It's like all I cared about. So I can't imagine how somebody, unless you have just like absolute, insane confidence that borderlines on arrogant, that you go right from school and start your own clinic clinically and you feel like you're going to be okay. Like, I just think you got to get some time to your belt. Maybe it's not 3 years. I don't know. I seem to find that be more of a successful timeline. But everybody's kind of has their own situation, but I just find that you're better off if you wait a little bit.
Yeah, I agree to that point. I think people just get excited. They see stuff online. They're like, oh, look at what all these other people are doing. I can't wait for that to
Totally.
be me. And I don't think I was exposed to that in PT school. I'm sure you weren't. I mean, I just didn't, I
Not
wasn't on the
much.
Instagram like I was now. And I wasn't aware of what else was out there. And now with how available all the information is, it's almost like people they're trying to jump the gun. And I'm like, whoa, 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 wait a second. Just get those reps in, like you're saying.
Shit's making me feel old. Look, I remember I was in PT school when the first iPhone came out. Okay, so it wasn't even like we didn't even know. Like I was friends with Peyton Manning on Facebook because it had just come out, and my friend requested him, and I was like one of the first 15 people that requested. We're
Are
not
you
friends
still
anymore.
friends?
No,
Oh,
fuck. Yeah, he's like, but this was like, it wasn't. It literally was like it was just a gimmicky thing. They're like, okay,
right.
whatever, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just
So
playing around.
but I guess what I'm getting at is I didn't have this comparison of social media, which can be so fun to see what other people are doing in their lives, but also at the same time make you feel so shitty about your own life. And
Yes.
that was something that I definitely didn't have to deal with. And I do think is more of a problem now, and positive in many ways, but like it's very visible. And I'll say this: like I've been talking to PT schools for I guess going on like 7 years, maybe 7 to 8 years about business right now. And one of them I actually talk to every single year. I have a friend that is one of the professors there. And each year, more and more students are interested in what I'm talking about. And I would say the very first year I talked, there was like one weird kid in the back that was like asking all the questions. And now I would say it's probably like a third of the class, if not more, is like engaged and they're asking questions. And I recently had a discussion with one of the professors at Duke, and he was telling me something very similar about their class and how it is transitioning more and more to this desire to be more entrepreneurial. And frankly, I think for our profession, it's a really good thing. It's very different than how it's been previously because we've been very big organizations that have been private equity owned or hospital partnerships that are massive companies. And now what you're seeing is it's like fragmented, small individual clinics that are cash or hybrid clinics, but those are starting to aggregate and kind of get market share and get bigger and bigger. And hopefully what will happen is they continue to create these great work environments because there's a lot of people looking for that type of work. And if we don't create a great environment for them to work, then they probably will leave. I mean, imagine this. Okay, like
Yeah.
what if you could work at a clinic? You had time flexibility. Let's say you had a 4-day work schedule. You had time flexibility. You could take time off without someone making you feel like you were like committing a crime. And then, but you made $100,000 a year. You only had to see one person per hour, and you didn't have this massive administrative burden. And you were surrounded by a bunch of other great clinicians that are all like trying to, treat people really well. Like, would you have started your own clinic?
I would be way less inclined to. Yeah,
Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist for most people. So like we're screwed. Like
No.
we have to start our clinics. Like I wouldn't have left
Yes.
either.
Yeah. I'm curious. What do you think do you think it's the social media and the exposure that's led to more of this curiosity over the past 7 years when you go back and do the same talks? Or do you think it's just people truly getting fed up with the system, a combination of both?
I think it's the system hasn't really changed. Like the system, high volume clinics have been there for a minute. A lot of documentation has been there for a long time. I think it's the fact that people realize that this works now. I mean, when I started my clinic, I had a conversation with two different people. One was the guy who I left the military to teach for, and he had a cash-based clinic in like this little Connex box in a parking lot in San Francisco. But people were paying him like $250 an hour, and he had a wait list, and it was really crazy to see. I was just like, all right, this could work, I guess, in San Francisco. I didn't know if it would work in Atlanta. And then I talked to another PT friend of mine who owned in-network clinics, and he was like, "There's no way that's going to work. It's just going to be a lifestyle business. If you're cool with that, like it could be a fun place to treat patients, but probably never going to grow past yourself, right?" So I kind of had to make the decision, and I said, "All right, great. Well, this is gonna be part-time, sort of whatever. I'm teaching. This aligns with what I want better." But the reality is like that as smart as that guy was and as much business experience as he had and success he didn't really see the direction this was going at all. And he was wrong because these are very scalable. You can definitely grow these. You can sell these, like it blows me away how many 7-figure, clinics we've had a chance to work with. And I never thought once that that would happen whenever I started mine. So I think what people see is that there's a viable business solution there that matches up with how they want to work with patients and makes them feel better than high volume clinic and sticking people in that model, which I do think is just, we know that no one wants to do that. We know no one wants to work in that setting. So I think that is why, and it's sort of the 4-minute mile theory, right? Like once Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, like multiple people broke it within the next 12 months and they never thought someone could do it. So I think that's part of it.
I wonder if there will be a change then too, like in the in network based model, because like you said, it's been around for a while and it's kind of been the same for a while. I don't know if I would expect to see a change. What I hypothesize would happen more so is just those sort of more athletic, more hands-on, one-on-one desiring type patients are going to be the ones that just don't even seek out in-network PT to begin with. They're just going to go straight to like, well, what's out of network? What's cash-based? Where can I go and be treated one-on-one?
Well, I mean, if you look at like some of these big physical therapy companies are publicly traded. US Physical Therapy, ATI, they're not doing well. Like really, really not doing well. Their stocks are getting hammered. They're losing market share. They've had a decent number of bad acquisitions. So, when I talk to people like at the APTA and people that are like more looped in with private practice section within the APTA as well, it's not like these high volume clinics are going anywhere necessarily, but they are definitely like, I mean, they're getting reimbursement decrease. They're losing more people. They're having more turnover, and they're struggling with a lot of problems because of the insurance, reimbursement side of things, which is just continuing to get worse over the last, frankly, like 20 years. So, maybe even longer. But the shift that we see is more and more people are moving towards hybrid clinics in particular. So insurance to some degree and cash, mainly because they don't have a choice. I mean, if it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts for them. And if they don't do that, their net profit is it's not great. And if they do switch, then they can improve that quite a lot. And they don't have to necessarily go fully into a cash-based clinic, which, that's what we did. But it's not the only way. Plenty of people have, really successful hybrid clinics where they can take insurance like Medicare or good insurances that are in their area. If they're in a military area, maybe TRICARE, stuff like that. And they can make it work really, really well, but they still have to have these recurring revenue services that most high volume clinics do not. They don't have great lifetime value in comparison to some of these cash clinics. We don't need as many people, and people are informed consumers. Like the amount of people that you work with that have insane high deductibles, and they're just like, okay, if I'm going to pay this much money wherever I go, I'd rather go work with you because you're going to see me one-on-one. You understand my sport more. And it's almost like unfair. Like, why would you go to a hospital if you could see somebody like yourself?
Yeah, that's funny. You mentioned that. I did a pelvic floor initial evaluation. Like me as patient went into a clinic where I kind of know the people, used my husband's insurance, and even with coverage, I was paying, it was $100 for the visit, and every visit moving forward until we meet our $5,000 deductible. And I was like, okay, for probably like another $80, I could go spend a full 60 minutes with somebody, like one-on-one, not be feeling rushed, not have all these other extraneous things happening. So yeah, it was fun from the patient experience, also being a clinic owner and being like, wow, it's not that much cheaper. And I know all the plans vary, but it was an interesting experience.
Well, you experience that through the eyes of the consumer. I think that's an incredibly powerful exercise, honestly. Because like we hear it from our patients, but yeah, when we go to different medical groups, like it's not hard to have a better healthcare experience like by a mile than the average hospital or clinic, because we can individualize things in a way that feels very much more like, I guess, like mom and pop sort of style business, if you were to think of it that way. We can curate a great customer experience. We can use their name. We know who they are, like we can write them a handwritten thank you card, like we can do things that we would hope like these were engineered into any sort of business that our family went to. And when you have a big organization that's owned by like maybe private equity or a hospital that's managing like huge number of people, that's where you start to lose some of that, and it's very hard to continue that and be enormous. And that's a challenge. And I think one of our unique advantages as smaller clinics is we can be more personalized, and the playing field is so much more level, right? Because that's one example, but I can give you an example of somebody going to a clinic that has maybe a hospital contract and they're paying $300, $350 a visit until they meet their deductible. And the way that those are framed is, well, you'll just meet it faster. And then after that, then it'll be like, $40 a visit. And people don't know in a lot of cases that that's, they can't do that, or they shouldn't do that, or whatever, because they're just going where their physician tells them to go, or their insurance will be taken. And then,
Wow.
that's it. Yeah, and these are clinics like in Atlanta too, by the way. And I'm not going to name them, but because I don't want to be an asshole. But I mean, like we have people that we've worked with that have started their own clinics that have gone through like manager sales training with these groups, and they have to learn how to reposition these as like positive things. And I'm like, how is it positive that you meet your deductible? That's not a win for anybody.
No. Wow, that's a crazy price. That kind of has my mind blown a little bit.
Yeah, now multiply that by high volume, and that'll really blow your mind. And then you wonder why. And this is actually like really frustrating if you think about it, where it's like, okay, if that's happening and you're generating this amount of money, because these are high volume clinics, that means per provider they're generating like probably $500,000 a year, per clinician, and they're paying their staff essentially,
$60,000 a year.
Exactly. And you're just like,
Yeah.
what the heck, man? I can't imagine ever running a business that way and feeling good about myself and like, it's like sleeping well at night. I just like, so anyway, to me, I see some of that stuff and it's like people deserve better than that. And we can build these clinics that do that. We just have to we have to be okay with learning more than just how to dry needle somebody's butt. Like you have to be able to understand sales, marketing, human resources, being a good leader, being actually able to like read a financial report, and look at your P&L and know what the heck it says. And that is where the clinician is mostly apprehensive. And the funny thing is we've passed a lot of tests. We've gone to school for a long time. We can learn information. We're very smart. And we have this sort of prerequisite skill set to be good students and understand how to understand information and to pass tests and to apply that stuff. And all we have to do is take that frame of mind and we tweak it a little bit towards this other information and people kill it, but they have to understand and they have to accept the fact that them just being a great clinician will only get you so far. It will help. But after that, that's it. Like you will not grow past probably just yourself.
Correct. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, it's just the frame of mind, similar to, I'm just not a math person or I'm just not a computer person. Well, if you keep telling yourself that, then you never will be. Same with business. I used to always say, I could never do sales. Like I would always feel so bad trying to sell somebody something. But the reality is every initial evaluation is like a sales pitch, basically, and you're making the first impression. And then from there, trying to get them to come back and to buy into your business. You are the business. And so when you reframe it in that mindset, you realize you are a salesperson, and it can actually be really fun. I quite enjoy it. I like doing the workshops. I like going and meeting new people around town. But you have to positive self-talk and not talk about how you hate sales and how you're not good at marketing, because then it's just going to be a vicious cycle.
Well, if you study sales training, right? So like here's the interesting thing about sales training. There's lots of different variations of this, like, the challenger sale, the whatever, like a dozen different variations of what people teach. The core framework is essentially deeply understanding someone's problem and providing a solution to that. What the fuck this is what we do at an evaluation. We listen to them, we ask them questions, we deeply understand their motivation for why they're here, what they're trying to get back to. We spend so much time with them, we build so much trust and rapport, and then as soon as somebody has to say something about money, they act super weird. And when that happens, then people are very off put. It's just like if you were cool with me for like 50 minutes, and then all of a sudden the last 10 minutes of our time together, you started acting like something was wrong, like you felt bad about something. Like I feel that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, this is strange. Why did this change all of a sudden? And then then the person never comes back, or they decide to see him for like one visit. Maybe they come in for a second or third and they never come back again. And it's a shame because 90% of it is already there. Like we already know 90% of it. All they have to do is get a bit more comfortable with money and to get a bit more comfortable with the fact that they're worth what they're saying that they are. And boom, all of a sudden they're converting at like 80, 90% on plans of care that are thousands of dollars because people see
Hmm.
value in us more than we see it in ourselves. And I just like, I've seen so many of these where it's just like it's going so great, and then all of a sudden it train wreck at the end, and you're like, "What's wrong? You're
Yes,
right
you
there.
never.
Just believe in
Yeah,
yourself." You know what I'm
that
saying?
was a
And
big
yeah,
lesson that I had to learn because in the outpatient clinic, it's just this understood we're going to see everybody for 2 to 3 times a week. We're going to set their
yes,
plan of care for 8 to 12 weeks. Boom, bada boom,
yeah,
done. And then I send them to the front desk and they get scheduled. And there's really no questions asked.
yeah,
But then when it falls on you to also be the scheduler and also be the person running the card, there's this disconnect. And I remember
yes,
having so little confidence about that for some reason. And then I had to sort of look inward and remember, like, wait a second, you've already done this many, many times. Now it's just you're the one having to take the payment, but that's okay. Like, it's okay to get paid for what you do. People want to be told what to do afterwards. They don't want to just guess and be like, when do I come back in? Do you want to see
yeah.
me again? So just being true to your word and have some like oomph behind the words that you're saying, and people will be like, okay, yeah, that sounds good.
I had a very hard time with this, and I'll go ahead and I'll share that with everybody because I was
Sure.
terrible at sales, so bad, and to the point where, like, when people would ask me what I would charge, I would like kind of mumble it and change the subject really fast, right?
I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever you're good with, whatever you want to pay me.
Well, they'd be like, well, so what? So you charge like, well, I was like 700. How's the weather today? You know, like, uh, what are you up to this weekend? And they'd be like, all right, I guess I'll see you next week. And and then I'd like run their card, right? So it was terrible, and I didn't sell, like, I didn't have any plan of care in place. Not because people didn't tell me to. I actually had people that were really smart business people. They'd be like, you should probably like package these up, if people are going to see you for this long. Like, it seems like it makes sense. And I didn't do that for, I mean, well over a year, mainly because I just felt very uncomfortable talking about money. And even when I did have my first package, I only had one, and it was 3 visits, which was basically my average. So it actually just was like them
Three.
prepaying to come in anyway. Yeah, for 3 visits. And because I would discharge people really fast, because I would think to myself, man, it's like they're going to come see me, or they're like going to buy groceries for the week. Like, they should probably go buy groceries. And it's such a ridiculous thought, number one. But I mean, that was I had a very, very challenging time with it, and just sort of my money mindset around it took a lot of work and a lot of time to really understand the value that we provide for other people, and how much, it's not like we're making it up. Like, they see a massive amount of value in what we do, way more than we do, way more. And we just take it for granted because we think it's not that hard, right? It's just what we do for a living. But
Right.
when somebody is like back hurts and they can't pick their kid up out of a bathtub or some shit like that, just like something life event that's really important, or they can't, I don't know, play softball with their friends, or they can't throw their kid in the pool over the summer because their shoulder hurts, and they feel, like they're aging. And like, these are the things that people assign so much value to. And we can help them with that.
Right.
And we think, oh, we're worth $120 an hour because that's what insurance says we're worth, the cash rate. And that's just not the reality of the way people look at what we do. And it's hard to see that until you've gotten into the arena and you're like getting beat up by, sales, and you don't know what to say.
Right. Yeah. It's exposure too. Like, the more that you practice it, the better that you'll feel
Yeah.
about it. And eventually it'll be like second nature, but it definitely takes time. It's one of those things they don't really teach you in school. You just kind of have to learn yourself. Yeah. Um, Really quickly, you mentioned in your book some other books that you took a lot from and learned from. Would you add anything to that list? Because you had some by Ryan Holiday. There's some other ones, but yeah, which ones would you add to the list 7 years or 6 years later?
I think, it's funny. It's like, I feel like it depends on the stage that somebody is, in their business. I can't actually remember the ones that I referenced in there, but I think the right book at the right time for the right person is like transformational. It's
Yeah.
just like, I had a mentor that was really good at that, and he'd be like, you know what, you should read this, and then he'd give it to you and would not expect it back. And so I would say, if somebody's reading that book and they're trying to get started, I really do like The Obstacle is the Way. That is probably the book that I reference in there. It's a Ryan Holiday book.
Yes.
It's a book that I used to actually give if I would work with a youth athlete that was having like an ACL surgery and I knew they had like a long rehab process, I would actually give this book to them. I just think it's anything challenging somebody's going to go through. That's a really, really good book. There's a book called The Dip as well, which is really good, which I think I reference in as well. It's Seth Godin, and he talks about like the idea of like the dip is essentially, you get started and you have all this excitement, and eventually that wears off, and you sort of crash down into like, oh shit, this is really hard, and now you're in the dip, and that's actually where most people give up. And if you know you're in the dip and you can be okay with that, and you're like, oh, I'm in the dip, this sucks, but if I just don't give up, then I'll come out the other side. That's a really, really good one. I think E-Myth is actually one of the best books for business owners that's ever written. Michael Gerber. That is a fantastic one for people that's getting started. In fact, I like try to reread that book once every couple years. But right now, for me, I think that there's so much information out there in podcasts. YouTube, like anything you want to learn is just so accessible now, whether it's a book or something like that. Just being curious enough to like search things out and learn from other people in whatever fashion you want. I mean, there's plenty of good books you could read, but like something like this, or I don't know, whatever you find interesting. It could be a health and wellness podcast that you just want to learn about, like lifestyle medicine. I mean, you can learn so much cool information if you're just willing to be a lifelong learner.
That's true. Being a lifelong learner, I feel like I touch on that a lot, because you have to be. You can't be stagnant. Otherwise, as a PT and as a business person, nothing's going to happen after a short while if you're not trying to learn.
Like a person, to be honest with you, like the people that I'm around that I feel like are most cognitively aware, interesting, happy, successful in whatever domain, whatever domain that they want, including their career and family, they're constantly learning stuff. The people that I find that are very frustrating for me to be around, that are like negative, and they're I consider them like energy drains. They just like suck the energy out of the room.
Yes.
They don't learn shit, like nothing, except for maybe stuff that they want to bitch to you about, right? Like they're not
the news,
or just
they're watching the news,
or you're just like telling me some shit that happened years ago. You're still mad about, and I'm like, what does this have to do with right now? Like, you're missing the point, man. It's like you want to like smack somebody and like open your eyes, like look the fuck around, and right. A lot of that comes down to if they're willing to continually progress their own, lens on life, right? Like that's it. And I think business ownership, the best way to explain it, in my opinion, is it's almost like you don't realize what you've signed yourself up for. You think it's like, okay, I'm going to start a business, cool. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to have time freedom, whatever it might be. And what you realize is all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have money mindset issues. Oh, I have anger problems. I'm not good with time management. Like I dropped the ball on communication and follow through. And these are all things that dramatically affect your personal life. So like it or not, it's like personal development in a nutshell is entrepreneurship. If you're trying to be successful, you have to lean into those things.
Yeah, it's like a forced journey to self-discovery where you would not have these experiences otherwise, but because you decided to go this route, you're about to do some serious self-reflection and figure it out.
Well, if you don't mind me asking you a question on your podcast,
sure.
I would love to know, for you, if you noticed the same thing, what was it when you started your business where you were like, oh shit, like this, I started working on this thing about myself and it's dramatically helped my life?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say, and I'm still working on it, but delegating tasks. Like I am more of a type A person than I thought I was. I thought that growing up, middle of 5 kids, I'm type B, I'm chill, I'm relaxed. But as it turns out, I'm actually very controlling in every facet of the business and in life. And my husband's like, please let me help you. Please tell me how I can be of any assistance. And I'm like, no, I got it. And so learning to offload is the first thing that comes to mind. And I am still working on it today.
Look, middle kids for the win. I was middle kid. And the funny thing, there's a lot of positive traits associated with that. There's a lot of shit you got to work through too. But like that's a big one because it's more so trust than anything else, right? It's just like we say, I'm like perfectionist. I need, I need to do this myself. Like I'm the only one that can do it as good as I want it done. And it's great to hold standards and to be detail oriented. But at some point in time, you can't do everything ourselves, and a lot of it comes down to like, we're trusted other people will actually like do the things that we want them to do. And that's hard. I think that's super hard, especially with something that's so important to you as your business.
Exactly. Yes. It's, it's crucial though. I have to figure that out as I bring other people on and hire them and sort of expand. So I have to be less. I don't want to be the helicopter person, you know. I don't want to be micromanaging people. So I'm gonna be chill.
You can't, I mean, and that's leadership too. So, like that's I think why leadership is so hard is you have to be able to hold a standard while also you can't do it in like a mean way. People will quit, right?
Right.
When I was in the army, you could be very mean as you want. They cannot quit, right? That is not a good work environment for most people, right? So,
No.
not to say everybody's like that, but that you can definitely be an asshole and it's fine in the military. In a civilian environment, they'll just leave. You treat people poorly, they don't forget that, especially do that shit in public. Like you cannot do that. And like learning how to like delegate and be a leader and actually hold people to a standard, but do it in a way where it's really what's best for them, what's best for the company, and they don't feel bad about it. Like this is what trips a lot of people up. It's so hard to deal with other human beings.
Right.
Multifactorial. They don't want to tell you sometimes what's going on. Somebody's showing up late, and like we had an employee that was doing that. It was like, what's going on with this person? Like they're showing up late. They're not whatever. Turns out they were having like a bunch of like family illness issues with their parents, and they were like trying to deal with that, and they were all stressed out. Right? So, but what if you're a dick? And you're like, dude, show up on time. What's your problem? And they're like, parent is like about to die, and you never ask them. They don't want to tell you that. Like these are the things that you have to kind of uncover and be sensitive to, and like understand that you're dealing with people and having the emotional intelligence. That is so freaking hard, but it's also so cool because that's also like being a parent. So it's like being a parent to these random people that are not babies or your kids. It also helps
These grown adults.
Yeah, but it helps you be a better parent and understand your kids much better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like I have lots to learn, but it'll be a fun ride. In closing, I get a lot of questions about like, how did you start your own business? What was the biggest thing that you took away from it? And I always just tell people like the hardest part, the biggest challenge is just deciding to start, right? At least for me, that was it. And I'd say for other friends that have started their own businesses, hardest part is starting. So if someone's on the fence between like, do I start or do I stick with this more consistent, more predictable job? What would you say to them?
It's a good question. I think you would have to like put yourself out into the future and ask yourself, if you don't do this, are you going to regret it? I mean, I think to me, that's sort of the way that I make decisions now. And it's not exactly what I didn't do this whenever I started my business. Like it wasn't a thought in my mind. It just was, it was something that I felt like I needed to do. In particular, like my transition was maybe a little different than other people because the group that I started teaching for did a lot of military contract work, and I couldn't actually stay in the Army and teach for this group because if you're employed by the federal government, you can't charge the federal government as a contractor. So I had to make a decision, right? And, so when I looked at it and it was more for stability purposes for my family and things that we wanted to do, it wasn't like I thought about myself as like an 80-year-old man and was like, man, I wish I regret not starting that business. But looking back, if I had not done this, I totally would have regretted it. So, I think it's a fantastic exercise to think of yourself as a much older person and ask yourself if you would regret it. Is it that important to you? Because here's the other thing. Starting a business is really hard. Running a business is really, really hard. Growing a business is even harder. And it's not for everybody. There's plenty of people that don't make it. There's plenty of people that it doesn't work out for. And they go back and they work somewhere else and at least they know, I guess, right? But like, it doesn't mean it was the right thing for them to do because a true entrepreneur would never do that. Like you're either in it or you're not. You're either chronically unemployable or you're not. And if
chronically unemployable. I love that.
That's hard. No one can possibly ever hire me. 0
Yeah.
chance. You either, right? So like, if you don't know that about yourself and you need to go find out, go find out. But if it's like, yeah, that might be cool, but like, I still want to be able to be on 3 softball teams and I still want to be able to, have my like, not think about stuff outside of work and have balance in your life. That didn't happen for years whenever you start a business.
Right. No, I think that's great. I think if you're deeply considering it and not really on the fence about it anymore, like it's going to happen, but you're just not quite sure when, then it is for you. It's more so like you're saying, the people that are Oh, I've entertained the idea, but there's so many other things that I want to do. And yeah, you probably don't want to take the time to do it because it is a huge commitment. And
And it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel, I mean, for you, it probably felt like it did for most people where it's almost like you're going to puke. Like, it's like you have this like feeling deep down and you know, if you don't do it, it's just going to feel uncomfortable.
oh, I literally
So
couldn't sleep at night. I was like,
yeah,
I must quit.
but as soon as you did it, it's like, I mean, listen, it's a gross reference, but when you throw up, you feel better.
Yeah.
But like the act of throwing up is very uncomfortable. You know, it's like the worst feeling ever. And, but if you know you got to do it, you just got to do it. And if you can't sleep or it's driving you crazy and you just like, you can't pay attention to anything else, that's a clear sign that you need to do it. If you're just like, yeah, that'd be cool. You know, I'd like to like, you know, whatever, have this business and say that I'm a business owner or whatever. It's like, that is not going to carry you very far because it's really difficult to do.
Right. Yeah. That would be cool is not going to be a good enough mantra to keep you through the tough times, I
Yeah, if
think.
you're thinking that,
Yeah.
just please go do something else.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I feel like listeners are going to love to have heard from you, and you've got so much valuable insight. Do you have anything up and coming, anything new that people can expect from you in the next like 6 months to a year?
Yeah, we actually just started something new. So PT Biz, you know, is the education company that we have. But part of that is, you know, what we try to do is like solve problems for the people that we're working for. And one of the things that we recently started, which is actually really cool, is we started an AI scribe tool that we've been training for the last like 6 months, and we've been using now with like people in our mastermind and just tightening everything up. And it's insane. It's really cool. I actually used it. I did an eval on my son's ankle the other day, and I use it to do that note. And it's just something I wish I would have had. Like, it's, you know, it's saving people like an hour a day. Click a button, it listens to you, it writes your note for you. You just drop it in your EMR, done, right? And for us, we've just spent a lot of time training it specifically for physical therapists, so it can save them time. So these are things that we're trying to do to save time for our profession and really decrease burnout is a big portion of it because we know that's like the thing that no one really wants to do. It just sucks. And then, you know, you're never eating your lunch because you're typing notes. And now all of a sudden it's like, you know, we're on a mission to get physical therapists lunchtime back so that they can actually like enjoy their freaking chicken and rice and not have to type notes. And so that's been really cool. It's called Claire. So it's at meetclaire.ai is the scribe tool. And we hope to just continue to iterate on that and really remove more burdens from the profession that are more redundant and can be automated with artificial intelligence, which is pretty insane, the stuff it can do now, and what it can do in a few years, who knows? So we're really looking forward to that, but that's a big project we've been working on.
That's great. I love the underlying theme of just taking back your time. More ownership of your time is really the undercurrent of this entire conversation. So I think that's great.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
for sure. No, thank you for the invite. This was a lot of fun.
Good deal. Well, until next time.
See ya.